Well, now to a 2 News investigation. Criminals in crisis.
Chronically mentally ill people who aren't in jail and also are not in treatment. Libby Kirsch shows you why that is a dangerous combination for both neighbors and police.
The one with the most prevalent mental issue would come outside in his underwear. On a good day, he'd be wearing underwear, and he would urinate in the trash cans. He would rail against the community, against his imaginary friends. He would be violent. He would tear up the poles, tear up the house. He would take huge metal rods and start whacking at these signs and telephone poles and throwing chairs at cars and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Tyrone Givens is talking about his former neighbor, Jerry. He recorded this video of Jerry on advice from police after having repeated problems with the man. When Givens got out of the Army, he moved to Dayton and bought this duplex in Dayton's Twin Towers neighborhood. Givens has worked tirelessly to fix up the house and get to know his neighbors. But about 6 months after he bought the house, Jerry moved in across the street. Givens said he knew right away there would be trouble.
They were moving stuff in and out, and one of them came to ask me if I knew where to buy any, drugs or anything like that. The day they got here. And so that was a red flag.
Things went from bad to worse. Givens filed for a protection order against Jerry. But no matter what happened, Givens says the system wasn't designed to give him protection from a mentally ill neighbor. Givens says police were no help even when Jerry broke into Givens' home.
I had 3 or 4 witnesses, and, they actually told me that because he had a history of mental illness that they couldn't or wouldn't take him to jail because he would be released the next day, and that was a waste of the city's time.
Givens isn't having problems with Jerry anymore, but only because of luck. Bad luck for Jerry, good luck for Givens. In August, Jerry's house burned down. The fire was ruled arson. Givens won't claim to be upset by the fire. Jerry's home was condemned, and Jerry is now someone else's problem. But Givens is still upset with his experience in trying to get help from the system.
I feel like the system is really reactive. It's not very proactive in the sense that you don't get any attention until there's been a major crime committed.
Judge Mary Catherine Huffman says Givens' situation is an unfortunate reality.
The system doesn't have the resources to adequately or fully monitor people under those circumstances. It's just not possible right now.
Judge Huffman says they can only get involved when a serious crime has been committed, and too often that ends poorly for the suspect. In July of 2008, former Twin Valley behavioral health care patient, 35-year-old Ricky Moore, was shot and killed by a Dayton police officer. That officer was trying to question Moore about a recent armed robbery when Moore lunged for the officer's gun. In October of 2008, this SWAT standoff with 40-year-old James Wilson came to a peaceful ending. Wilson was visited by a caseworker who determined he wasn't taking his medication for a mental health issue. When police arrived to assist the caseworker, Wilson refused to come out of his home. After a multi-hour standoff, Wilson surrendered.
Most of our attention and time by necessity goes to individuals who've committed more serious offenses.
Judge Huffman says when Dayton's only psychiatric hospital closed in June of 2007, Montgomery County residents were forced to go to Summit Behavioral Health Care in Cincinnati, creating some unexpected complications.
The problem is that those individuals are now in Cincinnati, and they can't hook up with services here in Montgomery County that are necessary for them to have a successful transition.
Judge Huffman says monitoring the patient is key to their continued recovery. It doesn't always happen. In fact, Givens says Jerry was released from an inpatient facility and then, by all accounts, wasn't monitored by anyone.
There was never any supervision. There wasn't anyone, a caseworker or a manager, to come check on him and make sure that he was doing well on the outside.
You're flashing your damn laser beam in my eyes, man.
I ain't got no laser beam on here, Jerry. Can you send a patrol car out to my house? There's a guy trespassing on my property, and he's sitting on my truck.
Oh, you're flashing your damn lights around my eyes.
Really?
So that makes it my business.
It's a porch light, Jerry.
All right, as far as I know tonight, Jerry is still living in Dayton in another neighborhood in the East End. So if he's your neighbor, you obviously want to be careful because he appears to be mentally ill and not on medication.
So many questions come to mind. I can't help but thinking of the police officers who deal with these people probably on a daily basis. That has to be just an enormous challenge.
Yeah, obviously it's a concern for officers, and they do get training on how to interpret bizarre behavior, but there's no precise guide on symptoms. And while officers want to be compassionate, they also have to be on high alert because people like Jerry can be very unpredictable, as you could tell from that video.
So now the question is, what is the solution to this?
All right. Well, you know, I was talking to Judge Huffman, and she said time and money. Those are obviously the big ones. And the city has a mental health court with a judge who can do some things to manage these unstable defendants. But mental health courts are few and far between. They're expensive. And no matter what a judge does, people like Jerry often end up right back on our streets without the oversight that some patients need. The state says mentally ill offenders reoffend 70% of the time.
And of course, recently there have been a lot of state budget cuts in this area, which
Absolutely.
made a bad problem even worse.
Yeah,
All
lots
right.
of work to still
It's
do.
an
on this.
eye-opener. All right, let me thank you, Mike.